Welcome to Tuesday, January 24th, 2023, your Day Weather Podcast brought to you by Cowboy State Daily and WYDOT. When there's ice and snow, take it slow. Northwest flow aloft means that the air we're going to be breathing across the Intermountain West and Western High Plains will be coming out of British Columbia and Alberta. So it's going to be chilly. Brisk winds at times will make for some cold wind chills. It's best described as just midwinter out there, the time of year where you go, boy, I'm tired of this. When's it going to warm up? Unfortunately, I don't have any good news in that sense because we're going to see occasional snow showers, flurries, and a bigger push of Arctic air. Yep, Arctic air is coming in this weekend and into next week. And we really see this cold air being the most intense along and east of the Continental Divide, which is often the case with these Arctic outbreaks. Some Arctic air may spill west of the divide as well, and that's something that we'll need to keep an eye on. Going below zero, I think, is a given for many of you listening to this podcast if you're east of the Continental Divide by this weekend and certainly into the early to middle parts of next week. And the long-term pattern is for colder than average temperatures, probably for all the lower 48, but the core of the cold will be in the central and west central areas of the United States. So livestock interest, there's going to be a couple of weeks here where we're just not going to have any significant thaw. If we have a warmer day or two, it'll be just that, a warmer day or two. More often than not, it will be colder. And this cold is going to slowly spread south and east like molasses into the rest of the United States, pushing south and east as we get into next week and beyond. So everyone's going to really have to take part in this cold wave across most of the country as we go into the next 2 to 3 weeks. Yes, there is going to be some snow, although snow amounts aren't going to be tremendously heavy. There's going to be enough to already add to a lot of snow on the ground in many areas. Today's satellite photo shows a low here down over New Mexico. This is the system that swung through Sunday night and Monday morning and is going to basically take a track like this. This is actually going to be a pretty good weather maker, producing snow along its path right here in the next 24 to 48 hours. There's a weak little disturbance right here that's going to produce some snow showers and flurries over parts of Wyoming and Colorado today and this evening, especially over near the mountains. It's not really much, but if you notice the clouds, notice the pattern is for the clouds to go like this. There's your northwest flow. We've got disturbances all along the northwest flow right here, coming on back, lined up to come on south into the region. And the last one of these is going to drag some very cold air up here south. And we'll show you that here in a minute. So here's today's 500 millibar chart. You can see the low down there in Texas, high right along the west coast, and then the lows up here in the Gulf of Alaska and the Aleutians, all lined up to come south and east into the region. So this is what will happen today. By Friday, what we're going to see here, notice that blue and gray area up over Hudson Bay just expands and pushes a little bit more south and a little bit to the west, while the high pressure ridge continues to be very robust there in the eastern Pacific. When the ridge is here, we go into the fridge. This is the low that's going to latch up to the Arctic air right here. So notice the little kink in the jet stream flow right here at 500 millibars. This is an upper level disturbance. Aloft, this system is spinning and gonna go right down into the Great Basin, and as it does so, it's going to latch on to some very cold air up here in Canada and just drag it into the northern Rockies and the northern plains by the time we get into Saturday and Sunday. And as it drops south, it just is going to be grabbing that cold air, pulling it south, and this is the temperature anomaly by Saturday afternoon. So temperatures in the blue, the green, and the purple mean the temperature anomaly is below the 30-year average. So you can see how extensive the cold is, and you can see right along the divide how cold the air is. But also look how cold the air is back into Utah, back into Arizona, getting back into the Pacific Northwest and California. So while the real Arctic air doesn't get west of the divide, it's still plenty chilly. So the Arctic boundary by 5 p.m. Saturday is pushing into the plain states. Then by noon Sunday, the Arctic air is pushing south through Texas, going into the Midwest and going to the Great Lakes and overspreading the area. See the red up here? This means that high pressure ridge is very strong up in the eastern Pacific. So Alaska isn't warm, but it's warmer than the 30-year average, which means when you see that red up there in Alaska, that means the colder air is getting displaced south in latitude. And there it is. And we're just going to see a very persistent pattern in the next 2 weeks that will allow that cold air to spill. Now, this is by next Monday, the last day of January. We see that vortex of cold up in Hudson Bay. There's another low dropping south, dragging in more Canadian air. You see this spoke of low pressure up here? That's going to basically do the same thing and head south, just reinforcing the cold. This is 10 days from now. So if you look at Canada, and if you look at the exception of really Florida, the whole country by next Friday is going to be much colder than average, really across the entire continent. Interesting that the anomalies are in Florida and Alaska. Again, those are all just relative to average. So when it comes to snowfall, this is what's going to happen over the next 72 hours. There's the low down into New Mexico and Texas. It'll bring rain and snow down to the southern plains where they need it. Then up here, the northwest flow aloft, as we discussed yesterday, just brings flurries and snow showers and colder weather, a bit more up here in the northwestern areas of the Dakotas, eastern Montana. Generally scattered snow showers and flurries elsewhere, and temperatures that are going to be chilly, and winds that'll be brisk. So you can see the mountains and a little bit of snow on the plains over the next 72 hours in that northwest flow, just enough to be a nuisance. As we get out further, this is going to be with the second wave. So the second wave of cold, the Arctic front, you can see right along I-70, from I-70 to I-76 to I-80 to I-90, especially I-90. See this ribbon of moisture that's a little bit heavier right here. Along the Arctic boundary, this is where the most active snow is going to be. But you can see it's going to get into elsewhere. But the heaviest will be over northeastern Wyoming, southwest South Dakota, across northern Nebraska. And this boundary is going to wiggle a little bit north and south. But well into Colorado, the Arctic air will cause light to moderate snowfall as that Arctic air moves south. And even more snow there for the Sierra Nevada. So you can see the snowfall forecast from Saturday through Tuesday looks like this. Again, these mounts are going to vary. I think most of you are going to see snow accumulations in this area. Then look at the cold. This is by Sunday morning. The gray represents sub-zero temperatures. Now keep in mind this is a model. There's going to be areas that are going to be colder than this, especially areas that have snow cover. So this is Sunday morning. This is by Tuesday. The cold air gets deeper. Some of it spills west of the divide here into Sweetwater County. You can see, though, the divide is good at holding back most of the worst of the cold air, but it's still plenty chilly back here as well. Look at those temperatures in the Central Valley of California. Quite cold. Look at those temperatures in Arizona. Want to go south for the winter? Well, you're not going to really get that much warm going down to the southwestern United States over the next 10 days as well. So the very cold air comes in. Then look at the wind chill values by Tuesday morning. So you've got 20 to 30 to 40 or more below zero wind chill values heading into the northern plains. This is why livestock interests, short-term and long-term, need to be ready for prolonged cold. This is 360 days out. This takes us to the 8th of February. Notice the configuration of high pressure is still there in the same spots that we watch. So basically this holds the cold. And this is for that February 8th time frame. Look at the temperature anomalies from the Rockies and points east. So the pattern certainly is lining up to be, well, a lot more winter to come here. Be prepared. Have yourself a good Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow.